Hi there. Welcome to Have It All. I am your host and the creator, Anna K. Morris, and I'm thrilled that you're here because if you are here, it means that you're interested in having it all, or maybe you're curious about what I and my guests have to say about having it all. Can we? Do we know what it is that we want? And once we get it, are we wise enough to know that we have it? And are we worthy enough to hold on to it? That's what we'll be exploring on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here, and let's get started. Hi there. I am so excited to bring you this very, very special podcast courtesy of the Love Yourself Summit. If you were not able to attend the Love Yourself Summit, don't worry. I'm going to be bringing you some episodes from the Love Yourself Summit, from the incredible 12 guest experts that we had. So buckle up, take a listen, and I hope you enjoy. Back up. Okay, perfect. So, hi. Oh, and my son is home sick, and here he is right now. This is Jack. He's been home with a stomach bug. Oh. So, navigating all of this and also having a sick kiddo. You guys, can you guys go? All right. Okay. So
this is hashtag working mom probs. This is what it looks like, friends. This is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is real life, and we're all gonna roll with it because we've all been here. This is how it all goes.
Hang on, just a minute, guys. I'm gonna mute myself. You guys start talking, okay? I'm just gonna mute.
So I'm gonna jump in right now and just say thank you all for coming, because I know the first thing on a weekday morning when you're all getting ready for work or for your day, and you're really jumping into it, it's not always easy to get on to a summit, but you were drawn to the Love Yourself Summit for one reason or another, and we are ready to pour into you. So just know, buckle up. This is going to be a fun ride. If you have to get off early, no worries whatsoever. Anna's going to send the replay through to everyone. So join us for as long as you can. We are here to really impart, share stories, but more importantly, share what's worked and how we've navigated this art of reinvention and how that is the real flex in learning how to love yourself. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anna and let her get the show on the road, as they say.
Yeah, I love. Thank you so much for jumping in when my 5-year-old, he's very proud because he's been home with a stomach bug and he just ate for the first time. And he made his own breakfast. So we're having a lot of growth happening for him. So thank you for jumping in, Michelle. And I think that you said it perfectly. Whatever part of this you're able to attend, fantastic. And whatever connects with you, fantastic, right? Take the nuggets and leave the rest. So if you're hearing something and you're like, oh, that's not been my experience, great. But I will tell you, I was so careful. I am so careful about how I spend my time. And I know you all are, right? As you can see, navigating a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, I can really work about 10 hours a week without kids around. So you want to get really, really careful with how you spend your time. And so when I chose the 12 experts that I have on the Love Yourself Summit, it was with a lot of mindfulness. And for you both to be kicking off this summit, it is if I let myself really have it sink in, I will be a puddle of tears and nothing will get, it will just be me sobbing, because you both really are women that I look to when I myself am growing and wanting to love myself more. And rather than beating myself up or being hard on myself or thinking I need to do more, I'm constantly asking myself, is that true? Where is it coming from? Right? What would feel really good rather than what should I do?
100%.
Yeah. So I want to introduce Brooke, because we have not really met. And I'm so happy that you're here, and you have a coaching business called Unperfected.
Unperfected.
Unperfected. Thank you. Unperfected. And I can tell already from get on her social media if you're, it's Brooke Unperfected. Yes.
Brooke Jean Unperfected.
Brooke Jean Unperfected. Okay. And you'll see all kinds of like really heartfelt on the sofa messages from Brooke, navigating what all of this imperfection is, because like honestly, what is even perfect? I don't know what it is, but I can tell you when I see it, I am actually very grossed out by it now. Like, I really, really don't gravitate towards it, and I think most of us don't. So how did you come about that, Brooke? What was your own kind of reckoning, if I may?
Yeah, it's actually such a good story. So it's perfect that you asked that question. So my business is actually a counseling and coaching practice, and it started out 9 years ago as Brooke Jean Counseling and Coaching. And prior to this business, I did the corporate America thing. I had a child in college, and I was very driven, and I was climbing the corporate ladder as a single mom, and I had like a midlife awakening at 33, and that got me into this career. And then into this business journey, I had my second child. So my daughter, Chloe, is 14 years younger than my son, Camden.
Okay.
And I was nursing her in the middle of the night, and I was in so much pain because my ankles were so swollen. I was depressed. I was sleep deprived. I was not as happy as I thought this baby was going to make me. I was middle-aged now, having a child, and like the hormones and the sleep were just hitting different than when I was 21 and had a baby. And I was looking on social media, and I was seeing all of these moms portraying that they had it all and it was all perfect. And they had their families and they had their wealth and they looked perfect and their bodies were right and tight. And they didn't even have so much as a chin hair popping out. And I was like, I like zoomed out in this moment of darkness, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing this parallel where there is quite literally a rise in the expectation of the modern mom. Like, there is more expected of me as the mother of Chloe than there was as the mother of Camden. So now, 14 years later, we're doing more. We're not just taking care of the kids in the house. We're also making money. We're not just making money. Many of us are the breadwinners. We're not just the breadwinners. We're still in the classrooms. We're not just in the classrooms. We're still expected to make a gluten-free, dairy-free, dye-free, organic dinner 7 nights a week and have a deep discussion with our family members while we're patiently and with emotionally intelligence correcting our own traumas. And so that rise in expectation in the modern mom also paralleled a rise in her mental health issues. We are drinking more than we've ever drank. We have surpassed men in the drinking field.
Oh, I believe that.
We have more PTSD. We have more anxiety. We have 90% of the autoimmune disease. And so I was like, this is not okay. This is not okay. We're expected to do the most. We bury our feelings about it, and we're making ourselves unwell. And so I made a conscious decision to unhook and unsubscribe from this culture of doing more and doing it better and doing it perfectly. And that's when I birthed the brand Unperfected, which was my way of claiming to the world, I decide. You're not going to decide what's enough. I get to decide what matters most to me in my life.
I mean, first of all, not only congratulations, but thank you on behalf of your children. Right? Because they're really the recipients of this awakening, right? This reclamation. And also, I mean, this is similar to what, I know Michelle, we've talked about, and we all have backgrounds in the corporate world. And Derek, in fact, if you're available, could you highlight the three of us so that I can see all three of us? I don't even know if he's around or not, but if you are, could you? And that all being said, how did you start doing that?
How did I start doing what? Living in my truth?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's easy to say, like, oh, I'm not going to do blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
And we're all
Mhm.
coaches. So it's like, yeah, that's what, okay, I get that, like cerebrally, all of that. But then what did it look like? Like, what
Mm.
was one of the first things that you did?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are here. I mean, I know a lot of the people that are listening right now, and you're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And now what?
Mhm.
So what
Yeah.
was your now what? And Michelle, I want to hear from you next about your, because you had a similar experience in the untangling, right?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that I did, and it's like a massive pillar to my brand, is shed the shoulds. So I
Mm,
started following,
I
and here's
love
how
that
you do that.
phrase
Here's
too.
how
Yeah.
you follow your resentment. So I was a resentment, Rachel, like everything. Because I was doing everything that everyone else told me to do.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, what am I doing that actually doesn't light me up as a soul, as a human?
Got it.
Like I was Brooke Jean before I became a mom, before I became a corporate leader, before I became anything else. Like who is she? And in order to unearth her, I had to first clear all the gunk off of her, which was societal programming and conditioning and expectations and survival mechanisms and masks and protective parts. So it was like, what's no longer serving me? Well, you know what's not serving me? Stressing out about cooking healthy meals 7 nights a week. That doesn't light me up. Why am I doing
Mm,
that?
mm,
Why am
mm.
I subscribing to that? If that lights you up, go off with yourself, sister. But that didn't light me up. And I was
Yeah.
like, so I started like looking at where am I shoulding and
Hmm.
and what like where do I have pockets of resentment? That's where you
Yeah.
can find your shoulds.
Yeah.
And then like what's the belief driving that behavior? Well, good
Hmm.
moms should spend every waking minute when they're not working with their children. Good moms should make meals,
Yeah.
should blah blah blah. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay, but we're unsubscribing from that. So once I get that off of me, what is it that I do enjoy doing with my children? What is it that I do enjoy doing in the
Hmm.
world? So
Hmm.
I began to shed the shoulds. Step two was embracing the messy and starting to speak the shame about I'm in depression. I have suicidal thoughts. Motherhood is messy. This is hard. It's not as sexy. My marriage is falling apart. I feel fat. I started speaking the truth about things,
Hmm.
which liberated
Hmm.
me.
Yeah, that's actually what I wrote down when you said should shed the shoulds and
Hmm.
follow the resentment. The next thing I wrote was like tell the radical truth.
Yeah.
And I teach journaling. I've been a journaler for 17 years and I came to it kicking and screaming. I was like a hard no on journaling. It's hilarious. That shit. I'm like, if you don't learn anything else with me, you better learn how to journal, right? And the resistance is always telling the truth. One of my first questions when I'm coaching somebody in relationships, or for actually in public speaking, this happens a lot. I'm always like, do you want to be in your marriage? Out of the gate. And people don't always like that. And I'm like, but see, it's a different kind of coaching depending on the answer.
Hmm.
It's just we're going down a different road, right? And we are so afraid to tell the truth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Michelle, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You're like,
Well,
good.
first of all, yes, yes, and yes to all of this because I think it's all very relatable. And the reality is, we're talking about very universal themes, right?
Mm.
There's probably not a single woman on this that didn't relate to something that Brooke said, or many things that Brooke said. And, my story is a little different in the sense that I went down that career path longer and harder. I dove deep into it because it really depends on the stories we tell ourselves. And my story was I came from an impoverished background, and this decision is going to be hard. I'm going to have to do hard things. And so I'm going to get good at doing hard things because once I'm good at them, I'll be rewarded and happiness will be on the other side of these hard things. So I didn't have any notion that it should be easier than it ever was. It was always hard. I
Yeah.
took the path of going to the harder schools and getting the scholarships internships and working while I was studying and getting the promotion and busting. And when my friends were out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, not that I didn't go out, but occasionally I was staying in and plotting the next 5 years because I needed to do hard things because I was the oldest and I came from that background. And so that was the conditioning of get used to doing hard things, kiddo. This is life.
I want to point to that because everybody who's listening has an experience, right, leading up to adulthood of like, this is life. And I love what you just pointed to, Michelle, of like, you had it that life was hard and you have to do hard things. So it didn't occur to you that it could be easy or flowing, or that the more you relax, the more abundance would flow. Like that is counterintuitive to what you saw, correct?
100%. I would say, look, from 0 to 7, life was pretty damn good because I lived in a world of childhood and make believe, and I was the family actress, and I did think things were easy until I was told they're not, and it's going to be harder for you, and you need to plow these roads. So my awakening came, frankly, around the same time Brooke did. And I crack up at you called it middle age because at the time I thought it was middle age too. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and the first right of like,
hilarious.
I'm getting old. And now, in my early 50s, I can tell you, I feel like I'm just getting started and warmed up. So
yes.
That point in time, it was a big awakening because I hit the wall hard. I really did feel like I was ready to check out. This life was not worth living. It's too hard. And I didn't see light on the other side. So I talk about this in the book that's coming out, so I won't give it all away. But the reality is there were several awakenings along the road. I ended up going on and having a 25-year corporate career. I was in many ways happy. But I think for this conversation, what I want to share is the fact that I got to a point a few years back where I was sitting pretty happy at the top of the pile, if you will. I was in the C-suite. I'm executive vice president. I'm running the show. I've got tons of teams. I really did all the trench work. And now I was reaping the benefits of being able to coach and be the CEO whisperer and do all of those things. And yet, because I had more space and more willingness, I was doing the personal development work over many, many years. I was creating that ongoing space for asking myself the most important question anyone's ever going to ask themselves, which is the 4-word question of, what do I want? And I was continually asking that. And when I was willing to go through that, the art of reinvention was already underway, because what kept coming up was it's timed to step into a deeper level of authenticity. And for me, it was write the book, start coaching, really take the risk. And that required at that point in time for me to do something radical. So here I was, literally sitting at the top and saying, I'm going to walk away from it all. After all of this work to get here, I need to walk away from it for me. Some people might have stayed and tried to do both, but I could see the writing on the wall. I did that for a little while and said, you know what? I've done it the hard way. I don't subscribe to this anymore. Let's do it differently. So I asked myself what I wanted. It had been an ongoing conversation, a lot of journaling. And I had this epiphany in Greece that came from a place other, worldly of start a podcast. And I can tell you, it was kind of a laughable notion because I didn't listen to any podcasts when that came screaming into my head. And so here I was going, I'm going to go start something I don't even practice. So that seems a little odd, but I had a lot of conviction that that's what I needed to do next. And once you get that, and I think that that's the key, listen to those whispers of the soul because they contain the keys. That's where the secret sauce is for discovering what you need to do. So I always talk about the 3 A's of reinvention are, first of all, asking, what do you want? And you got to be in a conversation with yourself and be willing to see what comes up, even if it sounds crazy. Like for me, when I looked at my
Don't
husband.
edit it. It's like, don't edit
Don't
it.
edit it. I literally looked at my husband going, apparently I'm starting a podcast. And he said, what's a podcast? And I said, I'm not entirely sure, but apparently I'm doing one. And 4 months later, I launched one. And 6 weeks after that, it was in the top 2% globally. So, there were things, there's no coincidence that anybody who's on this call right now, that's no coincidence that you're here, because you are one out of 8 billion people on this planet. The fact that you are in this moment of time living your truth in your life and having this conversation with us three, there's a reason. There's something in here for you. So I want you to listen closely. So ask yourself. The second thing is alignment. There are a lot of things that were not in alignment for me. My marriage was good, but it was stagnant. I'd been married at that point 17 years. Been married about 21 years now. So about 17 years. It was good. It was comfortable. It's like a worn sweatshirt, but it was missing that chispa, the reason why we got married in the first place. And I was like, things got to change. And I started to kind of look around and say, what's not in alignment for me? I'm not doing things that light me up anymore. I'm good at what I do, but it doesn't light me up. My marriage has gone stagnant. I'm not around for my kids like I want to be. I'm definitely present when I'm there, but I have one kid. He was going to be getting off. He was just starting high school. He had looked at me in the middle of COVID. So he was in 8th grade, kind of in the tail end of COVID. And he said to me, Mom, please put yourself on mute. He had been listening to my conversations with work from his bedroom. And I put myself on mute. And I said, what's going on? Are you stuck with something? Is tech not working? And he goes, these people, you have repeated yourself 3 times. They do not deserve you. You need to get out of this and write a book. This is the wisdom of my then 13-year-old. Like a ton of bricks, because I sat there and I said, well, this job pays for this beautiful home, because we lived in the beautiful home, right? We had the beautiful home. I had the perfect picture, Instagram worthy lifestyle, but there were things that weren't in alignment, and my kid could see them. And so little by little, I moved toward the things I wanted. And I think that's a really important thing for people to hear. When you're out of alignment, everything feels hard. Everything feels hard. You feel resistance. And every day of my life, even when it got easy, I just felt like, ugh, another day. I'm pushing the boulder up the hill. And when I decided that it was time to get into alignment, I literally put the boulder down, expecting the world to fall apart. I literally was like, everything's going to unravel, and everything is going to go to hell in a handbasket. Watch what now? My marriage is going to spin out of control because I'm now saying things that are going to put pressure on us to face truths. My work is going to be like, what are you talking about? You're starting a podcast. I didn't even know if that was going to be something that they'd be okay with as an executive. I'm part of the brand. I'm part of their brand. Now I'm starting a personal brand. We'll see how that flies. And I had all these notions of what would happen if I got into alignment. And let me be very clear. It's not that everything went smoothly, but the universe showed up for me when I took that step toward what I wanted in ways I could never have anticipated.
I
went to resign from a job thinking, I'm one of 3 people holding the glue of this company together. And it's going to have a ripple effect on this man who owns this company in a big way if I step away, because it's a big decision to invest it in a leader and an executive once you've groomed them and you have them in place and things are working. If you remove that, it takes upwards of a year or more to find the right replacement and get things going and have clients believe. And yet I took the risk. And I sat down, and the universe was funny because I had planned to resign on a Monday, and on a Thursday night, I got a text from my CEO and founder. Hey, I'm in DC. The company's based out of New York. Let's have a conversation. I'm going to be at the White House. Meet me at the Ritz down the street. Okay. So I wasn't going to be able to have the conversation about all things business and then resign on Monday. That was going to happen on a Friday. So it was like sped up. Friday, I was going to have to face this truth. And I walked in at peace with what I knew was right for me, but anticipating that I might be really humiliated by a man getting really angry at me making a decision that was going to impact his business in a negative way. And instead, what happened is I sat for 2 hours with this man who happens to be Jewish. I happen to be Catholic by ethnicity and rite of passage in my family. And we sat there and talked about God and having a calling and what it meant to take a risk and how proud he was and how sad for him he was, but how excited for the world he was that I was going to go do big things. And he was there for me. That changed my life because I was willing to have a conversation that had a lot of risk in it. He could have said, "You're out. Bye-bye. All your stock options, everything gone." Instead, he said, "Would you consider if I made a new position for you and you still launched your podcast and you still wrote the book?" We tried that for a little while, and
but Michelle, I want to jump on something that you've said a few times, and then ask Brooke the same thing. What I'm really, really hearing is that you listen to those whispers, and this is like, and everyone stop what you're doing and listen to this next part. You took action. And it was only when you started to take, it doesn't have to be like some huge thing, right? You just started taking one action and then didn't.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Like,
I didn't have the whole plan cooked. I did not.
Right. And it's like, maybe I've seen, Wicked too many times, but I only saw it once, but still it stuck. But like, follow the yellow brick road. It's like, it's shot. I mean, we did a trip around the world for 3 years and didn't work. And people are like, how? And I don't actually know how to answer that. I'm like, it just kept working out the way it was supposed to work out. And I didn't try to control it.
I would just like to add, because Whispers of the Soul, this is a big theme in the book that I'm working on.
Is that the name of your book?
It's not, but it could be, right? Like a lot of people have argued that.
No.
So I want to just stop here for a minute, because if no one hears anything else from this conversation, I want you to take away the fact that everybody has it. You might call it the still small voice, but typically it's a whisper. It does not shout. It does not demand to be seen or heard. It's a small whisper that comes when you have that moment of you're alone, you're thinking about something, and then it just sort of whispers to you, there's something more. There's something more. There's something more for you. And let me tell you, that is where the secret sauce is. That is your compass. That is your soul. That is your divine higher self,
universe,
bringing you back home.
Intuition.
Yeah, if you're willing to step into that and listen to those whispers and follow where they lead, they don't lead you to the wrong place. They lead you back to yourself. This is part of the walk home, back home to yourself. But the path that they take you on isn't necessarily going to be linear. All I can say is, to your point, you need to lean into them and trust them. They are like your divine GPS system. They are the compass for this life journey that you're on. You came here for a reason. You have gifts that no one else has. And part of knowing what you are here to do is listening to those whispers of your higher self, divinity, source, whatever universe, whatever you want to call it, because it is your particular set of instructions for living this life fully, because that is what you are here to do. Live this human life fully. That means the ups and the downs, the valleys and the peaks. It doesn't mean 100% happiness all the time. It means full life so that you feel fulfilled. That is the key.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Amen. And I'm curious, Brooke, about how you've uncovered that for yourself, especially, you have a different path that you've walked on than Michelle. And I love what you said about the postpartum. I had kids in my 40s. So I had kids at 40 and 42. So it was like a radical mind fuck. I don't know how else to
To
say
put it
it.
lightly. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I knew what 40 years of my life was like before these children wanted everything and more of me, and all of a sudden, like, no, I mean, I was all for listening to my intuition, but this was like a whole nother level, right? Of like having bandwidth and all of that. And I'm curious, how did you go about taking the actions and listening to the whispers? And how do you, because you've, been coaching people for 9 years, what's kind of the secret that you found work is a universal way to work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like it's a really important piece to the puzzle of what we're discussing in reinventing yourself,
Yeah.
in hearing the whispers of your soul, in taking aligned action. As women, we hold a ton of wisdom in our bodies.
Oh, I'm so excited about where you're going with this. The yoga teacher in me is like, yes.
Yeah. And yet, so many of us have been at war with and disconnected from and have no longer been in communication with our bodies since we were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I'm getting full body chills as I'm saying
Me
this.
too. Yes, amen.
So, I can feel this is important. We have to heal our relationship with our bodies. So you might not be hearing the whispers of your soul because your channel isn't open.
Yep. That's really important. That's really important to note. Is this, I remember I can hear myself on the other side of a call like this 17 years ago. And I would be listening to you both thinking, this is all great for them, but I don't know even where to begin because I'm so far away. And the whisper told me to stop drinking, and I live in New York, and that's not going to happen. Right. But it's that I recognize it now, but that whisper was there.
Yeah.
And talk more about our bodies and how do you create the clear channel? I know how that happened for me, but from your experience, how did you create that clear channel and how do you watch people do that?
Yeah. And it's a process, you guys. Yeah. So when you're saying, God, this sounds great, I want to hear the whispers, I'm ready to take action. It's okay if it's a journey for you. But first, the therapist in me is like, you got to repair. So your body has been giving you invaluable information from the beginning of time, and you stopped listening. It said, feed me, and you starved it. It said, quit alcohol, and you kept poisoning yourself. It said, this guy's a tool, and you kept sleeping with him. It said, we don't want to wear jeans that are too fucking tight, and you squeezed yourself in it. And so eventually your body said, she's not listening. I'm done. So it starts with, and if you guys have the space to do this with me right here, right now, it starts with putting a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly and saying, hi, body. And taking a beautiful breath, like, hi, body. Ooh, I'm so sorry, body. I'm so sorry. And thank you, body, for never giving up on me. Like, our bodies are still showing up for us. They're still waking us up, allowing us to parent, to lead, to guide, to heal, to be here. Like, thank you, body. And maybe developing a practice where just for 1 to 3 minutes a day, you begin to check in with her. And you start to show and feel presence. Like, I'm going to start showing up for you. And you start to ask these juicy existential questions that Michelle so poignantly gave to us. Like, are we happy? Are we good? What do we want? And don't be surprised if in the beginning, body is like, I'm not telling you because you're not going to listen. Yeah. It's about repairing and rebuilding the trust and showing up with presence and love. And before you know it, my loves, the body bubbles up the exact wisdom that you need to take that step. But you might have some repair to do. And so start with a small practice like we just did together and start to show up for her like, body, I am no longer going to poison you. I am no longer going to shame you. And I am going to start listening in small ways and honor those whispers. And then before you know it, like now I'm such a clear channel. I'm freaking overwhelmed by all the messages all day long. I'm just, my nips are hard 24/7. I'm like, woo, it's coming through me. Ideas are coming. And so be careful, because once you unleash the power of the wisdom and the infinite intelligence in the female body, you're going to be blown away. And that's when things start to get easy. And that's when the yellow brick road begins to appear. And you just go, yes. And you walk through the door and yes, thank you. And yes, thank you. And yes, thank you. And you trust yourself. But I think one of the major blocks with women reinventing themselves and stepping into their purpose and power is we've got to repair with our bodies, because our bodies hold the key.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% correct. I know I recently had a friend try to be around her mother, and there was an abusive, relationship with the father. And every time she goes to be around her, she has a heart problem. And she really, and it's what you said earlier about like shed the shoulds. And it's like, I should go take care of my mother. I should da 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 da. And I'm like, at what cost? At what
Not
cost?
when your body is screaming, please don't. Not when your body is literally screaming at you, this is not for me.
She was just there and was like, I think I'm going to have, and the last time she was there, she had a heart attack.
Wow.
And this time she was there, she monitored her heart and she could feel, and she left. And she left.
Wow.
And she was supposed to be there for weeks, and she was there for 2 days. And I'm so proud of her.
And that is a beautiful example of following and repairing your body, like repairing your relationship with your body. When body says, like, maybe you're in a marriage or you're in a job or you're around someone who's hurt you, and the body is letting you know, like, this is not for us. Our bodies will tell us what we're a yes for and what we're a no for. And when we do something as audacious as that, like not being the good girl that shows up for our blood no matter what, and we honor our body, that is so healing for not just ourselves, but many generations that came before us and will come after us of women.
Yeah,
that is powerful.
And I think that, and I want to open this up for questions. Yeah. We'll do that in just a minute. But, I think we can all agree that the generation before us, our mothers, this wasn't a conversation. And it's not their fault. And it's also not their responsibility for us to learn this. And I'm constantly aware of that. Like it's my life. And no one else is responsible for it. So if it's going great, fantastic. If it's not, fantastic. Because I'm actually personally responsible for it not going great, which means I have autonomy to change it. Right?
I think you just hit something very powerful, and I want people to make sure that they heard it carefully. Not only are we responsible for repairing that, but how beautiful that we're actually living in a time where these awakenings, I can tell you the first one I had 25 years ago, a lot of people looked at me like I might have been a little crazy, right? Like, because I was starting to show signs of mental health challenges, and mental health challenges 25 years ago, nobody talked about it, right? So they were like, you're depressed. Well, like, just eat better, get a little sleep. You're really tired. There wasn't the sense that, no, I'm out of alignment and my soul is screaming for me to do something different. I also just want to point out the other piece that you said that's really important to note about your body knows best. Sometimes it's not a heart or a big, massive health condition, although we have seen that time and again, right? Dis-ease shows up for a reason. Instead, it's resistance. It's this
Yeah.
tightness in the body, right? And we think, oh, I'm being selfish. I should just do it. I should just do it. I should just move forward. I should just help them out. I should, but that tightness, that discomfort that we have learned so well to push through
Mm,
is the early sign of
Hmm.
this is out of alignment for me. This is
Hmm.
out of alignment. The body knows. And the better we are able to spend time, so people are probably like, so how do I know? Because
mhm.
we're so accustomed to the
Yeah,
pain and
totally.
disease that we don't even recognize it anymore as pain and disease. We just recognize this as life. So part of that actually ability to get into alignment requires space. We've not given ourselves enough space to let ourselves hear what our bodies are saying, what our soul is saying.
Yeah.
A little bit of space goes a long way,
Yeah.
right? And everyone who's saying, but I don't have time, I'm so busy, I'm so this, let me tell you, then you need more space than the next person, right? The
Yeah.
person who says, I have no time, needs twice as much time. So the
Yeah.
Mm,
we start to build it in as a non-negotiable. I'm going
mm,
to spend 10 minutes journaling. I'm going to spend 10 minutes in quiet contemplation with a cup of tea. I'm going to let
Mhm.
myself go for a walk. I'm going to allow myself to not go with the entire rest of the crowd of my family that wants to go to whatever. Today is going to be an afternoon for me. Claudia said it spot on. Give myself the grace to say yes to myself and maybe no to some other people, and maybe they're going to be disappointed, and that's okay.
mm.
It's okay. Let them be disappointed. That's for them to work out. Listen to your
Yeah.
body. Give
Well,
yourself that space. Just a
and I
little
think to point to what you had talked about before, Michelle, about like, we really think we know how it's going to go. And we really don't, right? You walked into the Ritz that day, like ready,
I was
ready,
ready to be
you're ready,
publicly humiliated.
right?
Mhm.
Mm.
And how frequently do we avoid conversations, truths that we want to share, whether about a marriage? I'm a relationship coach, so that's, kind of the genre that I'm talking about. But hard conversations with colleagues, with children, right? With parents. I live next door to my mom. Um, how frequently do we assume that it's going to go a certain way, and so then we don't?
So
And then,
often.
right, so often. And then you have the conversation, and you're like, oh, it wasn't even that bad. Like, even not participating in something with your family and you think they're going to be disappointed, or they're relieved because they also didn't want to go and they just got permission to not go because you didn't, because you took a stand for yourself, right?
100.
We were invited to a really fun concert on Saturday night, and I found out about it like hours before. I had spent 3 hours at a funeral talking to people on Saturday. And I was like, that concert sounds like so much fun, and no fucking way can I go be around more people. Like, I'm like a one time a day kind of, that's it. That's all I have. And I know I have a summit coming up. So like, I'm a projector with like very little like that I want to engage about. And so it was really great. And when I told my husband that it was our date night, he was like, oh, thank goodness. All I want to do is watch a movie and be on the sofa with you.
Mhm.
It wasn't a fight. It wasn't anything. It was actually a relief to him. And so I think if we can let go of how we think it's going to go,
Mm.
because our telling our truth inherently gives permission to the other people in our lives to do the same. And that is incredibly freeing and attractive.
Spot on. And I think so often, and I had this come up for some people who knew we were doing this summit,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, oh, Love Yourself Summit. I really could learn some tips on how better to love myself. And I said, oh, this is going to be so juicy because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, permission to take the bubble bath or go for the walk. And yes to all of that.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm all about do things that are going to make you feel good.
scratching the surface.
But the real flex here
Yeah.
is saying yes to those whispers of the soul, making the space for yourself to discover what it is you truly want, and then taking the next step of starting to get into alignment with that. I have a dear friend who is doing phenomenally well, so to speak, in terms of, she's generally happy. She goes to the gym every day. She's healthy. She definitely got me drinking more green
I
juice.
saw that.
I actually really appreciate it. My gut feels so good for her. And she takes the bubble baths and lets herself read the book. And she's doing all of these things. And she's in this lovely little bubble. And it's beautiful. And it's beautiful while she's happy.
Okay.
And then I said, okay, but what do you really want? That this is really just kind of placating you in this moment in time. Because this is all fun and I love it too. And let's go to the spa day and all of that. But let's talk about what's behind that you haven't done that you really wanted to. Because there's always something deeper and bigger and juicier. And you have so many gifts. What are those things that you're going to be willing to go after? Because you asked yourself the critical question, what do I want? Really?
Did she know?
Want a great body at the gym, right?
Yeah. Did she know?
Right. Yeah, she does know. She wants to write a book. She wants to go travel more. She wants to do those things. But, the reality is those things feel hard. And the easier way of loving myself is the things that I know I can do that are very attainable in this moment. And so it's not wrong. It's just what I say, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just all of these things.
Yeah.
Because this is better than before when you didn't allow yourself this.
This is a perfect segue because I do want to open this up to any questions that we have. So, because I think that, for those of you listening, let's see here, you're like, oh, this is great. But raise your hand if you have a question for these two powerhouses, Michelle or Brooke, and you're like, I'm dealing with this and I'd love to hear from you guys. So just raise your hand or type it in the chat, either one. I'm just going to take a look. I'm very bad at multitasking. Okay, so let's see. Okay, perfect. Is anybody's hand raised? Derek, do you know? Not focusing on the outcome. Okay, good. Yes. I'm just reading all the comments. Okay, I don't think we have any hands being raised just yet. But feel free to jump in if we're saying something and then something pops into your mind. I think that's a really good point, Michelle, right? And I personally always have in one of my group coaching programs, a decluttering expert. She's in week 2, speaking of space, right? So I'm curious, Brooke, when you were wanting to create space, I imagine you went about it probably similarly, and you were a new mom with a 14-year-old and a business that you were about to start, if I'm reading the room right. How did you go about creating that space and shedding the shoulds and all of that? Like, what were some of the first steps when you have a very limited amount of time? Or limited, I don't even like that word. When you have a very specific amount of time.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because now I spend half my day in self-care, but then if I would have heard this conversation, I would have been triggered. Like, how privileged that you get to take baths and do this shit and do that shit. Like, no, that's not relative. So I would say start where you are.
Yeah.
It's like there's things you're doing in your day that you're doing, like sitting on the toilet. Can you stop working? Don't take your phone and breathe deep every time you're peeing. Yeah. You're driving to pick up your kids. You're driving to your client session. You're driving to get groceries. Can you, every time you get in your car, before you start it, put your two hands on the steering wheel and breathe deep and do a body scan. Like, hi, body. We were talking about repairing with your body so that you can hear the whispers of your soul. Hi, body. Checking in. You're already going to drive. What's the 1 minute of the mini pause? I love to promote the mini pause, right? Okay, so can I get up 5 minutes earlier before all the hooligans in my family to have a moment to meditate and breathe and face the sun and remember who the fuck I am? Then that 5 minutes became so juicy that I was intrinsically inspired to make it 10, to make it 15, to make it 20, to make it now it's an hour. Now I get up an hour before my family and I have the juiciest morning ritual that is my daily date with the divine. It's the most important business meeting I have. So you got to start with what you got. And you got to I love a good habit stack, honey. I love a good habit. You're already brushing your teeth. Can you do a body scan while you're brushing your teeth?
Yeah.
Right. But then it's like once you start listening to your body, then you can be like, okay, so now that I'm checking in with my body, I can see that I'm tense a lot of my day. Why am I tense? Well, because I'm literally scheduling myself back to back to back to back clients, meetings, engagements. Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And getting curious about the why. Why am I doing that? Is that a should? What would happen if I had 15 minutes in between meetings? What would happen if I had 20 minutes? So it starts with the mini pause and checking in because then you can see where your contraction is throughout the day. And then the contraction gives you more information where you can do something different, like stop overscheduling yourself. Stop saying yes to shit that doesn't move you closer to your vision. Stop pretending. Stop pretending you're happy if you're not. Stop pretending you like this team member if you don't like. So it starts with working with what you got, turning your attention inward, and allowing your body to bubble up some really important clues. And then, like Michelle said, take action. But you can do it in baby steps.
Yeah.
You don't have to turn your whole world upside down. You can also if you want, but you got to do that. And then I think it does take like one piece of the puzzle that I do want to make sure we get to is just like the courage that it takes. The audacity is what I call it. I'm really big on audacity right now. It's like the audacity to then like honor your truth, because I think a lot of women, number one, they can't hear the truth because it's buried in their body and we've disconnected from our body. And then number two, the truth is terribly inconvenient and we've been raised to be good girls.
Yeah. The truth is terribly inconvenient.
Always.
So,
and yet it liberates us.
Yeah.
So it takes audacity.
Yeah, it really does. And also the audacity builds the courage. It's the action that has you then be courageous, right? You don't like get courageous and then do it. It's in the doing. It's actually at the same time, right?
And connecting to your why. So it's like, okay, so let's say my inconvenient truth is I don't like this job, or I'm not in the right partnership, or I don't want to live in this town anymore. It's like, but if you can connect to what you want and you connect to the why of that, that can start to build some courage to get you to take the first step, which then perpetuates the courage. And we get some momentum going here. So it's like, this truth is inconvenient, but it matters because my happiness is the best thing I can do for the humans in my sphere.
100%. Well, and I love what you said about like that momentum, right? When we talk about like peace and ease and like, let it be easy and all of that, it starts with a step. I mean, I've recently watched like 2 kids learn how to walk. It wasn't overnight, right? It was very messy. And it was like 1 step, 2, and then you keep going. And now they're, Lord of the Flies around here, running around naked all day long.
And think about their why. Think about a kid learning to walk their why. They're like, I want to do that.
Exactly.
And so they will fall and fall and fall and fall and fall because they see what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that once you get that taste of feeling like you want more of it and more of it and more of it. And that's where we start to really get brave, get courageous, have the audacity, right?
Well, and I think for those people who might be thinking, I don't know, like the stakes are high. I don't think that I am brave enough to start. I want to just offer a really sobering statistic. And that is, and I know a lot of you who are in this personal development space have heard this many times, but for those who aren't, it's worth repeating. One of the top 5 reasons and the number one regret of those who are dying, as recorded by hospice nurse Bronnie Ware out of Australia, is not having the courage to live a life that was true to myself, not having the courage to follow my dreams. So think about that. When people are sitting on their deathbed, they don't say, God, I wish I had gotten that promotion. God, I wish I had bought in that house by the seaside. Damn, I should have spent more time at the office. What they're saying is, I really regret. Now, this is people dying. I regret that I didn't follow what was in my heart to do. Instead, I followed the conventional path, and I regret it. That's my biggest regret. Over and over and over again. We're not talking about a handful of people. We're talking thousands of people. What is your biggest regret? What's your biggest win? My biggest regret is not following what was in my heart to do.
Perfect way to wrap this up. Thank you both so much. This could go on forever, and it will, but with different guests. Could you mute again, Brooke? I'm so sorry. I think that we have feedback again, which is our sign that, or maybe it's Michelle. I have no idea. But anyway, I love you both so much. I literally was taking notes the entire time, and I'm sure all of you were. And you can find Michelle Rios. Everything will be on the playback page. So if you guys are not getting emails, make sure that you've hit that you want to get emails. It's just a little click that you need to do in order to get all the emails, but everything will be on the replay page. And hopefully we'll see Michelle and Brooke again back on the VIP day. If you guys want to participate there, we would love to see you. And I love you both. Thank you so much for your wisdom and all of the mic drops. Yes, good. So Michelle Rios. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you as we expand in the world. What is it that we want? Do we believe that we can have it all? I hope this episode gave you some insights and some things to think about, and most importantly, some actions to go and take in your own life. If one of those actions is reaching out to me, I'm so thrilled and honored. You can always find me on my website, annakmorris.com, and you can always send me an email, hello@annakmorris.com. DM, texting, if you have my number, any of that is great too, and I would love to be in touch with you and help you have it all. I love you, and thank you so much for being here.